compensation plan is a lot different than the typical real estate company. And what I want to do in the next few minutes is help you understand our compensation plan fully. Our compensation plan consists of three components. Number one, the franchisee allocation, which is the amount of money that the franchisee keeps on each transaction component within his or her office. Number two is the commission on personal production, i.e. the commission split of the agent for the transaction. And number three would be the sales bonuses on loan production. And those are actually divided into two different types of sales. One, or A, the spread, and B, the generation. Let's take a look first of all and understand the difference between the gross commission income and the net commission income. Now this is very important because some of the components of the compensation plan are dependent upon the gross commission. Others are
That's the
dependent
extra
upon
one.
the net
I thought you
commission.
wanted one.
Well, I'm saying I could have got it out of there if it was nothing that I had to sign.
Oh, okay, no.
From a post-transaction side, it's very simple. There's $10,000 of company-generated commission. That would be the gross commission income. Now, the net commission income for our purposes, or NCI, is the amount of GCI that is left after deducting 6.5% and a $250 transaction fee. Now, I think that's best demonstrated by this example. We see a gross commission income of $10,000. In other words, that's the total amount of revenue that was generated to a particular company on a transaction. Subtract from that 6.5% and subtract from that $250, we get $9,100 remaining. That becomes the net commission income. Now let's take a look at the first component of the plan, which is the next stage franchisee allocation. As I said, on every transaction side, the next stage within a next stage franchisee's company, the franchise receives 1.625% of the GCI. The $250 transaction fee stays with the franchisee, and the franchisee also receives 3.5% of the NCI. The fourth component is 50% of the spread, if there is any. Now, I'm not going to go into detail on the spread right now. Let's just remember that if there is any spread, 50% of that comes directly to the franchisee and is included in the franchisee allocation. We'll cover the spread very shortly. So here's an example. We have the GCI of $10,000 less $650, which is 6.5% of the $10,000. Less 250 gives the NCI of 9,100. So the franchisee in the franchisee's allocation will receive $162.50, which is 1.625% of the GCI. The $250 transaction fee, 3.5% of the NCI, which is $318.50, and I just put zero because for the example purposes here, let's say that there is no spread. If there were a spread, then of course that would be added to the franchisee's allocation. So in this example, there is a total of $731 of the $10,000 that is part of is that franchisee allocation. Now that's important because that is what the franchisee keeps on every
Because that's where
transaction.
my question came, because this 250 looks like it's being paid twice. One at the GCI level, and that was my question, and every time I look at that, is that
Why
it's
they bring it
being
down?
paid there, and then it's being paid here as a transaction fee again.
And I think you asked them that question a little time.
Well, is one of them the $250 that the franchises normally get, and is one of them the $250 that we collect? What size deal was
See,
that?
that,
He discussed
because
the deal?
the 250 is actually the broker's admin fee. And this transaction fee is actually a part of the real estate transaction.
It's not the $250 that we're talking about?
I don't think so.
Don't
'Cause
know.
look
What was
up
the-
at-
what
look
was
up
the
at the
size
top
of
where
the
it
house?
says GCI, right?
What was the,
Well, can we read this?
So was your question was, earlier, do these fees still apply when it's a low, sale?
These do, yes.
all of that?
Yes, these do, yes,
Percentages
and I
apply
can be
of
a
everything.
witness to that. So these do apply, but the broker's admin fee is something different from this.
So would Johnny be able to clear this up for us?
I mean, what was the price of the house? Did they
Well,
discuss that? I
let's
missed
see, you
it.
see at the top
10,000,
where
so was
it says
it,
gross commission income was 10,000.
Johnny,
Oh, Johnny, we have a question.
came at the right time?
The 250 is just the once.
I was
Yeah.
hoping that it is.
See, the franchise allocation example.
Uh-huh.
Gross commission income is 10,000. And then it says less 250, and I'm assuming that's like a transaction fee.
Mhm.
But then where it says net commission income, they're accounting for that 250 again.
No, they're showing you where they're putting 250, where the 250 is
Okay,
going.
so it is just one time?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay.
And to clear this out, our transaction fee is gonna be $395 regardless of how much the house costs. People that's
The
buying.
broker's admin fee,
Okay, okay,
$395
Yeah.
across the board.
Yeah.
Okay,
okay,
you may continue.
okay.
Thank you very much.
Depends on whether that agent is part of that franchisee's team or not. Let's move on to commission on personal production. Commissions on personal productions are based on the broker or agent's commission split and the transaction's NCI. So the NCI is used for calculating this, the commission split. Commission splits range from 50% of NCI to 80% of NCI, and promotions to higher commission splits are based on achieving certain levels of production established by the franchisee. So the franchisee, each individual franchisee sets their own criteria for whatever is required to move anywhere from 50% to 80% of NCI. And of course, in some marketplaces, a highly productive real estate agent would not start at 50%. They might start at 75 or even as high as 80%. But again, that is the individual franchisee's decision in each of the local marketplaces. Now, what we've done is provided a chart here to give a sample of promotion guidelines. And again, this is just a sample. Each individual franchisee will set their own criteria. But as you can see here, just as this, again, a sample, we started 50%, go up to 80% by 5% increments. And then we have a suggested benchmark, entry-level associates start at 50%. After they've closed their 3 mentored sites, they move to 55%. When they have 2 closed sites or 15,000 in any rolling quarter, they go to 60, et cetera, and again, this is just a sample because each of the actual guidelines are established by the franchisees. Now you notice that we use a rolling quarter in our sample, and we encourage that.
Yeah, you guys understand what they're talking about right here, right?
The last 3 months.
And it's different in your own production.
The rolling quarter is January, February, March. In May, the rolling quarter is February, March, and April. Again, this is just a sample, and each individual franchisee will have their own
Did you
guidelines.
understand it so far?
Here's an example, though, of how it works. Commission on personal production. $10,000 gross commission, $9,100 net commission. If the agent's commission split is 75%, they would get 75% of the $9,100. Their commission would be $6,825 in this example. Now, let's move on to the sales bonuses on team production. Now, notice we have underlined and put in italics team production, because at this point now, we're going to kind of forget about what we would do personally in our own personal production. That's covered under the commission split. What the franchisee earns on every transaction is covered under the franchisee allocation. But the third component of our compensation plan are the sales bonuses on team production. Obviously, everybody wants to build their team. They want to build their business, not just do business. And the bigger their team is and the more production their team does, the more they earn in sales bonuses. So we kind of have to mentally make a distinction. From this point on, we're talking about team production, and everything is focused on building the team and the amount of production and sales bonuses you will earn on the production of the team versus what you would earn on your own personal production. Sales bonuses are paid to the upline team leaders of a broker or agent who closes a transaction. Sales bonuses are based on that upline team leader's contract level and the transaction NCI. So everything here, the sales bonuses are based first of all on the NCI, and the amount of sales bonus is determined by the leader's contract. Now, the leader's contract is different than the commission split. Requirements for the leader's contract are outlined and controlled by Next Stage Realty, not by the individual franchisee. And as we can see from the chart here, everybody starts out at a sales consultant level. The leader's contract level begins at sales consultant. And it doesn't matter if you're a $10 million producer or if you're a brand new agent, because this has everything to do with the team that you build and your team's production as opposed to your own individual production. So you can be a highly productive agent individually, but that doesn't mean that you've done anything to build your team and earn sales bonuses for production of that team. So everybody starts at an entry level of 50% for the leader's contract. Now you'll understand why these leader contract percentages are important shortly. I just want to kind of go through that. The first promotion, which jumps you up to a 65% leader's contract, is earned when you have one closed side, either individually or as a team. In other words, if you have a closing yourself personally,
That's right.
that
And what does it
qualifies.
say?
If any member of your team has a closing,
I
that
moved,
qualifies.
because I had-
One closed transaction,
Oh, okay.
individually or team, plus one active next stage agent. If you don't have an active next
So once
stage
you get a
agent,
closing,
you can't earn
You
any
automatically
sales
move
So I
bonus
said
anyway.
240,
You have to have one agent on your team, obviously.
239.
and
Oh, you
one
gotta have one
closed
agent, so
transaction
you
to be
won't be-
So I
eligible
won't move.
for
It's and
sales bonuses. So in many cases,
200.
that
Oh,
first
so that's
transaction
the
that closes, if it's a team member, that will earn you the promotion to the level that will enable you from that point on to begin to earn sales bonuses. And our leader contract level goes all the way up to 80%. And in order to get an 80% leader's contract, one of two things have to happen. Number one, you have to either be a franchisee. Franchisees are automatically given the executive sales director position, which is an 80% leader's contract, or you have to satisfy the production requirements that are outlined here, which would be a combination of 80 team closed sides or 600,000 in GCI in a rolling quarter. In other words, every month we look back at the past 3 months. You have to have 80 team closed sides or 600,000 in GCI in that rolling quarter, and you have to have 6 direct active agents. Direct would mean that those are agents that you sponsored directly yourself, brought into the company, and now they're attached to you, and they're your, what we would call your frontline or first generation agents, and a total of 80 team agents. Now that is total, that's not in a rolling quarter, just where you have 6 direct agents that you brought in and 80 team agents, that you've satisfied that requirement. But it must be, it is a combination of both the production amount of the team and the size of the team counts. So that is what determines the promotion level. Now let's go on and understand a little bit more about the commission split versus the leader's contract, because there's always a lot of confusion. An agent's commission split determines the amount of commission the agent earns when he or she closes a transaction personally. So you could be at a 70 or 75% commission split, you could be at a 50 or an 80% commission split. That determines how much you get paid when you have a closing yourself personally. You listed something that sells, sold something that closes. That is your commission split, and that is determined by the franchisee and whatever criteria he or she determines from their individual office. An agent's leader's contract then determines if an upline team leader will receive a sales bonus, and if so, how much the sales bonus will be. So again, different things. Commission split determines what you get paid for your own production. The leader's contract will
How many
determine
team
if
members?
you receive a sales bonus for team production, and if so,
Six
how much.
direction. Oh yeah, agents
There
and
is
agents.
no relationship between an
Doesn't
agent's
include
commission
anybody you
split
bring in
and
that
the
brings
leader's
it up.
contract.
Right.
An agent can have an 80% commission split and a 50% leader's contract. Again, the commission split is established by the franchisee depending upon their criteria that they set for promotions. And the leader's contract, everybody except franchisees starts at a 50% leader's contract and works their way up depending on the size of the team and the production of that team. Let's move into understanding the spread, because the first sales bonus, as you'll recall, was the spread sales bonus. The spread is the difference between 80% of the NCI and the commission split of the agent closing the transaction. Example, Tim is an agent who closes a transaction. Tim's commission split is 68%. A 12% spread exists, which is the difference between 80% and 68%. So that's the spread. No spread exists if the agent closes a transaction has an 80% commission split, because 80% minus 80% is what? It's 0. So that's the spread, very simply. The difference between 80% and the agent who closes the transaction, his or her commission split. Now, the spread sales bonus, that's the spread. Let's talk about the spread sales bonus. 50% of the spread, if any, if there is any, because as we talked about, there may not be any spread, but if there is any, 50% of it is included in the franchisee allocation, as we previously stated. So we can go back to that slide, and we talked about the franchisee allocation, and that 50% of that spread would be there if there is any. In that previous example that we used with a 12% spread, that means that 6% of the NCI would be added to the franchisee allocation in that particular situation. The remaining 50% of the spread is considered to be the spread sales bonus. And a spread sales bonus is earned when the upline team leader of an agent who uses the transaction side has a higher leader's contract than the agent's commission. Let's take a look here at an example to see how this works. Sally recruits Sally has a leader's contract of 8%, and Tim has a commission split of 68%. So obviously, a 12% spread exists between Tim's commission split and 80%. When Tim closes a transaction, Sally earns a 6% spread bonus because the spread is 12% between the commission split and her leader's contract, and half of that, 50%, is 6%. So when Tim closes that transaction, Sally earns a 6% spread sales bonus. Here we see it graphically. There's Sally, who has an executive sales director leader's contract. By the way, we automatically know then that Sally is either a very strong team builder. She's built a
That would be
team, does a lot of
right?
production, or she is
Just
what?
say I'm
A
10.
franchisee.
Okay.
Either way, she would get the executive sales director. Tim's commission split is 68%. There we see the spread of 12%, and half of that goes to Sally as the spread sales bonus, or 6%. Now, the spread sales bonus continues throughout the hierarchy as long as a difference in the upline leader's contract and the agent's commission split exists. Let's take a look at it at an example here. If Sally recruits Tim and Tim recruits Jerry, Sally has a leader's contract of 80%, Tim has a leader's contract of 74%, and Jerry closes a transaction and his commission split is 68%. When Jerry closes a transaction, Sally earns a 3% spread sales bonus and Tim earns a 3% sales bonus. And let's take a look at this graphically, because if you're a visual person like I am, it's a lot easier to understand it when you look at a picture. Here we see how it's laid out. Now, the spread between Jerry's commission split and Tim's leader's contract is 6%. Half of that obviously is 3%, so Tim would earn a 3% spread sales bonus. Now, Sally would also earn a 3% spread sales bonus because she doesn't get the entire spread between her leader's contract and Jerry's commission split, because Tim, who she brought into the company, and Tim brought in Jerry, Tim has gotten the first part of that spread.
Okay, so you do.
6%.
You
So the
did
spread
that it
for
skipped that
Sally is
person. Remember, did
Well,
we
they
did-
would have showed example
her
where it
leader's
skipped.
contract and commission 6%, so her spread bonus becomes
Okay.
3%.
And see, in this one,
Here's another example.
everything is distributed
Sally
because
is
as you go up the
80%,
hierarchy,
Tim is at 74%,
everybody's
Jerry
leadership
is
contract is
68%,
higher.
leader's contract, Diane, who closed the transaction, has a 65%
So
commission
everybody's
split.
higher.
So, first of all, there's a 1.5% spread sales bonus for Jerry, because the spread between his leader's contract and Diane's commission split is 3%, half of that is 1.5%. Tim gets a 3% spread sales bonus because his leader's contract is 64, Jerry's is 68. Half of that, 6%, is 3%. And Sally likewise earns a 3% spread sales bonus. So that spread sales bonus continues throughout the hierarchy as long as there is a spread. Now let's take a look at another example here. We see everything is the same except Jerry now in this example has a 65%
Right, so
leader's
that's what you
contract.
have to keep in
Diane
mind,
has a
so nobody
71%
catches up if
commission
you
split.
want.
Let's see what happens here. Well, there is no spread for Jerry. Jerry's leader's
You see
contract is
that?
lower
Wow.
than
I
Diane.
understand
Yeah,
now.
so you have to make sure you stay, your leader's contract is always higher than the people under you. And I can understand why they do that, because it gives you the incentive to individually work hard. Because you don't have the opportunity to sit back and say,
So
well,
your
let's let my
production, you
team
just
work.
kind of stay above your team.
Yeah, that's your incentive to stay above
Might
your
not
team.
always be the case.
Right.
So in this case, Jerry doesn't get a spread sales bonus. Well, you may be thinking that doesn't seem very fair for Jerry, because Jerry's the one who brought Diane in, and Tim and Sally wouldn't have made any money if it hadn't been for Jerry bringing in Diane. Well, that's why we have the second side of the sales bonus, which is the generation sales bonus. Again, on team production. All the sales bonuses are based on the team production. A generation is created when both the upline team leader and the downline agent have leaders' contracts up to 65% to meet the sales director level. Let's give an example here. Sally recruits Tim. Sally has a leader's contract of 80%. Tim has a leader's contract of 65%. Tim is Sally's first generation. Both of them have leaders' contracts of at least 65%. So Tim becomes Sally's first generation. Sally then earns a first generation sales bonus in addition to any spread sales bonus. Now that's very important. This is in addition to the spread sales bonus that you get on Tim and his team production. So on Tim and anybody that Tim brings in, that Sally would be eligible for that sales generation and spread sales bonus. Let's take a look at it graphically here. We see Tim has the leader's contract for 68. That would be a 6% spread, and that would also be a first generation. So in this case, Sally would get a 6% spread plus a first generation. Now the generations are paid out like this. The first generation pays 7.5% of the NCI. Second generation, 3 3/4. Third generation, 2 1/4. Fourth generation, a half.
So as you
Fifth and
build a
sixth,
team,
a
you
quarter
actually
each,
have the
totaling
opportunity to get
14.5%. Now, obviously, the closer the person is to you, the bigger percentage of the generation sales bonus you get, starting at 7.5%. You'll notice that after the first 3 generations, it drops down significantly, fourth, fifth, and sixth, a half, quarter, 1/4%. That's because we believe that if you've done an effective job of working with and training and developing your team, by the time it gets down to that fourth and fifth and sixth generation recruits, you're probably not even involved in those. Your first, second, and third generation agents are helping those people come into the company and build their business. So that's why we have structured it that way. So the fourth, fifth, and sixth are just kind of a little extra reward for doing a good job of building your first 3 generations. Now let's look at another example. Sally recruits Tim. Sally has a leader's contract of 80%. Tim has a leader's contract of 50%. Well, we know if Tim has a leader's contract of 50%, he has not either had a transaction personally or as a team, anybody on his team, or he hasn't brought in an active next stage realty agent. The criteria to get promoted from that 50% beginning leader's contract. So this means Tim is not Sally's first generation. In that example, Sally will earn a spread between sales, but not a generation sales on Tim's production.
So if you don't have a transaction, you gotta have a transaction
There is
before I
a
get anything.
generation when Tim has a leader's contract of 50%. If Tim closes a transaction, then Sally will get the spread if there is any. But again, in this example, we don't know what Tim's commission split is. All we know is that his leader's contract is 50%. His commission split would be 75%. In which case, Sally would earn a 2.5% spread sales bonus, because the spread in that case would be 5%. But on anything, when Tim has the leader's contract of 50%, there is no generation. But as noted here, all Tim has to do is recruit 1 agent and have 1 closing to move to that sales director level, which would make him eligible for any sales bonuses on his team, and would also make him a first generation to Sally. The commission split of the
So you're
agent
not my
closing a
first
transaction
generation
becomes
until you
a
have a
contract
sale
on that.
and a person.
Now that's important, because let's go back to that
That's the
example
way it
with
looks
Tim.
there.
He's had a
Yeah.
50% leader's contract, but
That's
has
what
a
I'm saying.
higher commission split.
So that means the 7.5% you said for you won't get.
Until she
might
get
get
it.
Until
Until she
I-
get a bill
somebody, so
again.
you need to go with Brickfront.
Oh, wow.
But that's for
wow.
all of us.
They make it
For
hard for you to
everybody in
actually
the first
Get
generation.
it in, right.
Wow.
Contract, but a 68%.
It's always a catch
Now,
22.
the transaction, the agent closing the
Hey,
transaction.
you think you're recruiting the
Right.
person doing something, but if the person just, if you get a person that come in, you get a person that come in that don't really want to team business, well, like
Right.
you said, Val used to tell me that they're not considered cheap, and it's not really for you.
Mhm.
One there, because you're not gonna get anything
Right.
with them just doing their own personal
In this
production.
scenario, Jerry.
And they wouldn't wanna do that anyway and get their stuff chopped up.
Generation.
You know, that's the only benefit of the spread coming out.
Why? Since Jerry's
I gotta
leader's
get my
contract on this
battery.
transaction is 68%, which is
You better get your company.
because
I'm at all.
This the same video you sent
again,
me?
regardless
I
of
don't
what
know, I
the
don't
leader's
think so.
contract is of the transaction,
It's
is
an
a
FES.
transaction with one that they know personally.
Oh, you need to come
Come
on my
on.
team. I'm on his team.
Contract
Yeah,
was
so if you come on me, then you'll be
You'll be
very
right.
How's that going?
It's like great, cause see, you were in the office together. It's going really well. Mhm. Yeah, my girlfriend brought me in, he brought my girlfriend in.
So let's see how this looks graphically, okay? Here we see that Jerry, because he's at a 68%.
Somebody, I don't know.
that-
Now, I haven't really seen the compensation, so I don't know how it works.
Oh, compensation is excellent.
6% spread,
I
half of
told
that
you
goes to
so.
Tim, he receives a 3%
So
sales
is it
bonus.
wise to
The
give
same
her
for
the,
Sally.
username
Now,
and password so she can go
because
to the dummy?
Jerry's, even though his normal leader's contract is 50%.
What she wanted, she looking
She
at,
wanna clean the credit.
Transaction.
okay,
So
yeah.
I'm just, you know, I'm gonna touch bases with her
Contract, so
for
that
all
creates a
two.
first generation situation for Tim. So Jerry in this transaction becomes Tim's first generation, and Tim will get a 7.5% sales bonus on the NCI. Jerry becomes Sally's second generation, and Sally will receive
You get paid twice.
3/4% second generation sales. Even though Jerry's normal, leader's contract is 50%, so even though he has a 50% or sales bonus on the leader's contract, since he is a delegation in this transaction, he is considered to be a
Second
second
generation.
generation.
They make it hard for you to get those generations.
Put into the
Let's
pipeline.
take a look at another example. Diane, Jerry's only recruit, has a closing.
Yeah, you can
Okay,
get
this is the
promotion.
first closing. Jerry hasn't had a closing himself, and Diane hasn't had a closing. This
Qualify
is
for
now her
gas
first
check, you have to do a deal yourself.
Jerry's
Jerry's
leader's contract.
Do they have to do a deal, or you just need to do a deal?
You just need to do
In this scenario, there is no spread for Jerry because Diane's commission split is higher than Jerry's leader's contract. So we roll on up to Tim and we see Tim has a leader's contract of 74%, there's a 3% spread, so that creates a 1.5% spread sales bonus for Tim. And
To
likewise,
give her the same.
You know, like I said, so she'll work the flame.
Sally. Now, what about the generation?
I'll just put it on
Well,
there.
Jerry has a 65% leader's contract, he is not. So therefore, Diane is not a first generation of Jerry, it skips Jerry, and Diane is Tim's first generation. And that makes Diane Sally's second
So
generation.
I like the
Well, you say that doesn't seem fair, Jerry doesn't get anything on this transaction, he doesn't get a spread, he doesn't get a generation, but he brought Diane in.
Angela, you see
What
this
does
one?
Jerry get? Jerry gets a promotion. He now is qualified at
Because in
65%
this one,
leader's
they
contract,
actually
so
showed again
qualified
how
for sales
Jerry
bonuses.
did not, was
Everybody
not
on his
considered
team from that
Tim's
point
first
on.
generation
So
because
we'll carry
his
this on, and
leadership.
now he's at a 65%, Jerry's at 65% leader's contract, and that means that when Diane has another
Explain it
closing,
all to you.
he still is gonna get his spread because his leader's contract is still less than Diane's commission split. Tim will get the 1.5% spread sales bonus, and Sally will get the 3% spread sales bonus. But look what happens now. Because Jerry got the promotion with the 65% leader's contract, Diane becomes his first generation, and Jerry will receive the 7.5% of the NCI first generation. Tim, in addition to his 1.5% spread sales, we're in a second generation sales.
So that's what I'm like,
All
we
three
can use our team, but
and Sally in
we
addition to
ain't
3%
getting none of
spread
that.
sales.
Like, you ain't getting none of the stuff about buy a seminar. We gonna be our own creative person in
All right, so
seminar.
hopefully that will help
You
you
know, so-
understand. Now, I know that you're probably not going to grasp all of that at one time, but I encourage you to play this back and listen to it again, and the more you
That's why I look at it
Yeah.
like at home.
Again,
Because the more
we
you
have
look at
there are
it, the more
three
you
different components of the
Yeah, I don't even take,
compensation
but
plan.
that's how we don't do
Franchise
that.
allocation,
You know, take
what the
it,
franchise
like that.
earns
But
on
just
every
tell them, say,
transaction
what's the license man?
is
So the more you
John Baker.
and then the sales
with their, you know, with their credits, you know, with lives, you know.
Now, one
just
last point, with
them.
the
Yeah,
franchise,
that's-
if that agent
because I don't wanna take you, I
transaction,
wanna be out